Hello and welcome to Project Parents United, a unique platform where we discuss children's health issues, parenting issues directly with professionals that take care of our children. We know how important sleep is for children's development, but as parents, we often think, how can we get our kids to sleep better? And we also hear the buzz about sleep training. But does sleep training really work? And are there any long-term benefits of sleep training our children? To learn more about this, I reached out to Dr. Sandeep Reddy, who is a pediatrician, a mommy of two, and she's been practicing for over 20 years in Henderson, Nevada. Let's see what she has to say about this topic.
Hello again, Dr. Reddy. Welcome again to Project Parents United. So excited to have you.
It's so wonderful to be back. Thank you.
All right, so we talked about a very important topic, independent playtime, in our last conversation. But today, we're talking about sleep. If there's one thing, a question that is on most parents' mind is, how do we get our babies and how do we get our children to sleep? And we often hear about sleep training. So please tell us, what is sleep training and how does it help our babies?
So sleep training is basically having routine for your child around bedtime or nap time, and then just training them to go to sleep without you having to help them for long periods of time. So, for the baby to be able to sleep themselves. So that's the gist of sleep training.
I see. And we hear, I think as most parents, we've either heard of or tried the cry it out method. And I hope, and I really hope that there are some milder approaches out there. Can you tell us about some of the methods that are used for sleep training?
So there are several methods, and there is no one method that is correct. I think a family has to decide what method works for them. Just to kind of list a few, I'll list them from like the gentler to the more, so which cry it out would come on a little bit more harsher method, I would say. So one is it's called the fade away method. So that's a very gentle method in which basically you are still soothing the baby, you're holding the baby, rocking them to sleep, then putting them in the crib when they're a little drowsy. And the hope is that you do it less and less. So if you were, rocking them for 5 minutes, you gradually decrease it to where you have to do it just for a little bit, and you're able to lay the baby down and the baby goes to sleep. So It's a gentler method. So it can be started earlier because it takes a lot of time and patience. So you can start as early as 8 weeks with the fade away method. And then the next method, it's called the pick up, put down method. So in this, what happens is when you see that the baby is getting tired, is ready to go to sleep, you pick the baby up, you soothe them, calm down. Again, when they're drowsy, not fully asleep, you lay them down. And then if the baby starts fussing again, you repeat it again. So it's a very laborious, labor intensive, requires a lot of patience. And because it's not intense, you can again start in a relatively younger baby. The third method that's really good, and it's a gentler method, slightly more tears, it's called the camp out method. So in this, you have a chair, or they call it the chair method. So you have a chair next to the babies and you lay the baby down and you sit in the chair. So there is physical proximity. The baby knows you're there and they are comfortable and soothing themselves. So there are two variations to this. You don't interact with the baby, but you're there. A more gentler version would be where if the baby is fussing, you would soothe them down and, be there. And the goal is that gradually every day or every week, you distance your chair away from the crib till you're out the door and the baby is able to sleep without your help. And the last one is the Ferber method, and a harder version of that is the cry it out. So in Ferber is called, what basically happens is you have predetermined intervals when you go to check in on the baby. So you have a time that you have set, 7 in the evening. You get the baby ready, bathe, and then feed them, make sure they're fed, changed, and they're in their crib. You walk away. The baby starts crying. So you say, okay, after 1 minute, you go check on the baby, maybe pat them gently, soothing words, and then leave. And you slowly keep increasing the time intervals when you come in to check on the baby. And the longest you'll let it go is 15 to 20 minutes. And you won't let them cry more than that. So 15 to 20 minutes, walk away, wait for 15 to 20 minutes, come back and keep checking on that. And so those are the different methods. But again, it depends on, what method works for your family. And the cry out method or the fade or the Ferber method, I would say, is the age group is 4 months to 6 months. So for slightly older infants.
I see. And I am so glad, honestly, as a pediatrician, you probably must have heard a lot of stories about sleep training babies, and Cry It Out is probably number one on most parents' lists. We start with that, but I'm glad that there are some of the other options which are definitely milder. And you touched on the question I was just about to ask you. What is the right age to start sleep training our babies, if there's such a thing as a right age? You touched on that, but can you please talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So again, depending on the method we're using and the age or when you are ready to start and how old your baby is. So the gentler methods, you can start them around 8 weeks. But for the Ferber method or the Cry It Out, I would say 4 to 6 months is a good time to start the training. Yes.
I see. Okay. So these age ranges are, I guess, gives parents a good amount of time to do their research and give it a fair try. And it's no one size fits all. I think it's important to understand.
Right. And then also, during that time, while you're coming up to that period where you're going to start the sleep training, you can have a routine where the baby has a routine in the evening. It's called sleep hygiene. So the baby gets a bath and, you dim the lights and everything is, more mellow so that every day the baby knows that this is what my routine is going to be.
Right. I really like that. No, these are some fantastic tips. And I think it's also important to discuss if sleep training really work. I mean, if in medical literature, does the medical literature state any long-term benefits of sleep training our babies?
So I would say, with babies sleeping in their own areas, learning how to self-soothe, studies show that it's a better, deeper sleep. So the baby is more rested. So that leads to a happier baby when they are awake. And, so it's just better overall. And also what happens is parents are getting more time to themselves. They are getting better sleep. So the parent-child interactions improve and just leads to a more healthier, happier family dynamic.
Right. No, this is fantastic. I think sleep training methods are out there. It gives parent a little break, and it's never too early to start teaching your babies the right sleep habits, as you talked about sleep hygiene. So I think this is great. And we also know a newborn spends majority of their time sleeping. As they get older, are there any guidelines of how long a child or a baby should typically be sleeping?
So newborns can sleep up from 16 to 20 hours a day. And then, they'll be awake for an hour here and there. And of course, they're feeding and doing their daily activities during that time. As they get a little older, so infants are sleeping between 13 to 15 hours a day. And then toddlers, about 12 hours. And as far as the naps go, for toddlers or infants, total should be 3 hours in a day of nap time. I would say, looking at sleep training, if you're going to be sleep training them in the future, naps should finish by roughly 4 p.m. so that the baby is ready to, fall asleep by around 7, 8, which is a good time to, start the nighttime routine.
I see. No, thank you once again. You are sharing some very resources, very useful information for young parents out there, and even parents do use. So these are some great tips.
We hope you found this information useful, and don't forget to tell us what you think. You can also connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, or visit us at www.projectparentsunited.com.